I'll kick everything off. Welcome everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. This is our 31st meeting of the ECN, I believe. And for those who don't know me, I'm Chris Gunter, President and Collection Manager at the Cal Academy here in San Francisco. And I'm very sorry that we're not meeting in person this year, but it's wonderful that we're not. I guess I haven't really missed Orlando before now. But I'm very excited to welcome the 406 people that have registered for this meeting. This is the largest meeting of ECN by far. We'll have people from over 25 countries joining us from all over the world, which is really exciting. And I really look forward to this participation, see if we can get many of you as involved as possible. If anyone's having any issues, please let me know. Reach out to me directly. We'll see if we can get everyone connected online. And if you miss any of the talks, don't worry about it. We'll be saving everything and posting it to YouTube. I know this has been a very weird and challenging year. I hope this finds everyone doing well this morning or this evening. And I hope you are all able to steward the collections that we care for in a wonderful way. And I really look forward to building ECN as a resource for all of us, as a community resource. So if anyone ever has any questions or needs or is looking for, any help from the community, we're here. We certainly want to grow this to a robust and global community of entomology collections. This is our first year running a virtual meeting, so please be patient. We're figuring everything out, for the first time ever. We've had a lot of help from our partners at iDigBio and CICIB and all sorts of people that are really helping guide us. And so we'll make some mistakes probably, but hang in there and we'll be back and correct them as we go. If you miss anything, again, as I said, we'll upload all of that to YouTube. We're also really excited this year to be working with the Entomologists of Color over at EntoPOC. So please go check out their mission. We're going to be able to donate 10% of our earnings from this meeting back to EntoPOC, which is fantastic. We're really excited to be as inclusive and broad as we possibly can in these meetings. And let's see, one reminder, if you're using any social media, please use the hashtag ECN2020. And I think with that, we can actually dive in and start this meeting just a minute or two early. I'm going to hand it over to Nicole, and Nicole will have some more technical details on Zoom and other sort of questions, but don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. I know there's a lot of people in this meeting right now, and it's not a Zoom meeting, it's a webinar, and so we're a little more isolated, but we're going to have a whole lot of different meetups and everything throughout the week, and I look forward to seeing and talking to all of you in person. So with that, we will officially begin ECN 2020. Thank you, Nicole, it's all yours.
Thank you. Just start my PowerPoint presentation for you all, which I'm going to assume that you can all see. So once again, welcome to the 31st Annual Entomological Collections Network Conference. Particularly a large welcome to all of those first-time ECNers. And I know just looking at the attendee list, I think it's about 50% of you, this is your first ECN, and we're so excited to bring this to you virtually because it really does mean a lot more people who don't normally have the ability to travel to our conference are able to join us. So my name is Nicole Gunter. I'm the Vice President of the ECN at the moment, and I'm also Associate Curator at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. It's my pleasure that we're able to kick off this conference with what brings us all together, entomological collections, and we're going to be doing virtual tours for our first session. So if you'd like to use social media throughout today, please use the hashtags ECN 2020 or virtual collections tours for this session, and also feel free to tag us during this. Just before we get into the fun, I'm just going to give you a really quick walkthrough of some of the Zoom webinar features. So feel free to introduce yourself by simply changing your name and your affiliation in the Zoom webinar button features. So to do this, hover over the participants box and then find your name in the list And if you hover over, you'll find a More button here. That will give you the option to rename yourself by clicking rename, and then you can enter your new screen name. We recommend using your name and your affiliation, but also feel free to use pronouns if that's what you would like to do. So during this webinar, you'll have the ability to ask the panelists questions specifically relating to their talk. We ask that you please use the Q&A box for presentation-specific questions. This will give us the ability to track them more easily, but you'll also find that there is a chat box which you can type into. But for directing speaker questions, please use the Q&A box. Presenters might then answer these questions immediately, particularly if it's a nice, short yes/no question, or they might also choose to answer them live during their allocated session time. If there's a question that another attendee has asked that you really also want to hear the answer to, feel free to use the little thumbs up button that will be immediately under the All Questions box. So these little indicators give us the feeling of how popular the question is, and the higher the votes, the more likely that the panelist is going to answer them live. So feel free to use this so we get a good gauge of how interesting the question might be. So there is also this chat box that you'll see. Feel free to use the chat box to say hello to all of the other attendees around the world. This is also a great spot for technical problems. As attendees and participants, you'll be able to either message everyone or message the panelists or the hosts privately. So just make sure you're selecting the right group for your question. But unfortunately, with the webinar settings, we are not able to allow that. There isn't the option of allowing all attendees to private message between each other. So it's either everyone, just to the panelists and hosts, or just to the hosts alone. We're really hoping that we get some engagement through this, so make sure you say hi. It would be great to hear what country you're joining us from. So please feel free to use this chat box as well. We'll also have the opportunity to ask poll questions throughout this webinar. So this is another way for us to engage with the audience. We can set up poll questions at any time during this webinar. However, it does take a few minutes as we need to do this through the back end of the Zoom webinar features. So if you'd also like to poll the audience with a certain question, please use the Q&A box with a poll request prefix to your question. We're probably going to launch most of these polls during the short break in the middle. So this is just another way to engage, and we can get feedback from different people all around the world wherever you join us. But remember, this does take us a few minutes to set up, so there might be a little lag with that. And I think just before you saw a poll pop up earlier as an example. So just a reminder, even though that this is a virtual conference, the code of conduct still does apply. You can find the code of conduct. Oh, here's some results from that first poll that just picked up. I am super excited that there are as many people excited about entomological collections tours of the world, but there are so many great symposia today, and tomorrow and the next day, that we're really looking forward to it. Anyway, back to the code of conduct. You can find the most up-to-date version on our website, ecnweb.net. But if you have any questions, concerns, or anything that you would like brought to our attention, feel free to email Christy Bills at any time during this meeting, or also reach out to any of the ECN leadership. Just be aware that some of the ECN leadership may be performing different technical issues for part of these symposia. So Christy is the ideal person to contact if you do have anything to report or anything that concerns you. So with that, I want to thank you once again for joining us and the speakers in this session. So for this Entomological Collections of the World virtual tours, the tours are pre-recorded and they're up to 8 minutes in length. Following these videos, we have the opportunity to ask the presenters question and answers during live questions. So throughout the tours, make sure you're adding those questions to that Q&A box and we will get to them. The presenters will also continue to answer those questions if they don't get a chance to get through them all in the next 10 minutes or so. So add as many questions as you want and we hope that we will be able to address them all. So due to the popularity of this symposium, we wanted to feature as many collections as we possibly could from multiple countries all over the world. And as we reached out to people and other people also volunteered to give their own tour, we found out that we're getting a lot of interest. So ECN decided to break it up into 2 sessions of entomological collections tours. The first one, you're joining us today right now, session 1. So we'll be touring the world. All of the spots in red we'll be visiting today. And then if you want to see more and you want to see some collections from different countries, we'll also be doing a second session tomorrow later in the evening or early morning, depending what time zone that you're in. These 2 sessions were broken up based on just the time zone that these institutions were. And we're trying to make it as inclusive as possible and so that our presenters don't need to get up at 2 a.m. to join us today. So with that, we're going to launch the very first session of ECN. I'm so excited to bring you these first collections tours of the world, and we're going to kick it off starting in India. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just introduce you to our very first speaker. So joining us all the way from the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, India, we have Yeshwant Murthy. So welcome to ECN 2020, and I hope you enjoy all of these collections tours. Thank you.
Namaskara. I welcome all of you to the virtual Entomological Collections Network. So this is our lab. I'll take you around our lab and we'll get into our collections. This is our collection facility where we have all the specimens deposited. This is our mobile rack system wherein we have deposited all our collections. So this way. The collection is housed in the Department of Agricultural Entomology, University of Agriculture Sciences, Bangalore, and is supported by University with project grants from ICAR. I currently take care of the collections in an honorary capacity. At present, no full-time staff have been assigned to the management of the collections. Our collections primarily include insects of agricultural importance, and we have about 270,000 specimens housed in this collection. The oldest collection we have here is a Weevil Archidotus collected by Leslie C. Coleman, a Canadian scientist who worked in the princely state of Mysore in early 1900s. We have about 700 holotypes and roughly 1800 paratypes deposited in these collections by various researchers. A very large number of cicadel types are due to the work of Professor Virak Tamat, an eminent leafhopper specialist. During the course of more than 3 decades of his teaching, the collections made by graduate students have enriched the holdings. In addition, many of the students in the department have worked on various taxa under his guidance and have contributed to the collection. One of the largest moths recently described as a new species from Western Ghats. The collections also include wet specimens, immature insects, and termites. There are also voucher specimens deposited by researchers who work on insects associated with agroecosystems. Colemannia spinneroides is an endemic species named after Leslie C. Coleman. Specimens of desert locusts collected during the recent outbreaks in India. Commonly occurring species of fruit-piercing moths in India. One of the largest stick insects from southern India. We have a separate section to house the mite collections. The collection facility helps in various ways, including teaching undergraduate and graduate students, training researchers, and for outreach programs to the general audience. We provide identification services to researchers, farmers, quarantine, and other government agencies. We were recently able to confirm the entry of African fallopian Spodoptera fujiparda into India in 2018. We also loan out specimens mainly within India. For researchers from other countries, the rules and regulations set out by National Biodiversity Authority need to be followed. Researchers can visit our facility in person. We have had numerous visitors to our collection over the years, and we welcome you all too.
That was an absolutely amazing collection. I know I've never seen the agricultural entomological collection so far. If anyone has any questions, feel free to add them to the question and answer box, but I'll start with one. So what are your loan policies? Are researchers able to borrow any of the types? Or if we want to visit types, do we get to come and visit you in Bangalore?
Yeah, definitely, Nicole. You can definitely come in and visit. Also, maybe if you want to borrow, we can send in some specimens. If we know personally, in fact, we have a lot of people coming in, like from BMNH. Mick Webb is the one person who has been closely associated with our collections. So sometimes we send in and also borrow these specimens. Yeah.
And if we wanted to request a loan, is it you that we email directly, or is there yourself or other people as well?
You can email me so that I can put into the authorities and I can get in the permissions. So in fact, right now I'm taking care of the collection, so it should not be a problem there.
Excellent. That's so exciting to hear, because I know that there are so many researchers that would love to have a look at all of the Indian biodiversity. You've got some amazing specimens there. Of all of the collections that you have, what is your favorite part of the collection that you have?
Because I work with mirrits, so I would definitely say I would love to see a plant bug there, a mirrit there.
Cool. And what about digitization of your collection?
Digitization, we haven't started it because we fall short of the fundings and other things. So we are slowly getting into that, because now every university or a museum will have a very good website where they have all the digitized types. So we are slowly getting into it. Maybe if we write up for some fundings, and slowly we can start doing that also. We are into it. Maybe we are thinking to put all the types and paratypes, which it's easy to put those types and paratypes because we publish that, so we may make images, so it is easy to start with the types. So slowly we are thinking on that. Yeah.
Perfect. So now there are some questions coming into the question and answer boxes. How has your collection been affected by any COVID lockdowns?
No, in fact, definitely it has affected us, but it hasn't stopped people coming in and looking into our collections. But we haven't gone into field collected new specimens or the new collections into the facility. So we were not allowed to do that. But in fact, it gave us time to work on our collections.
Perfect. And then there's one last question. What is the state of your parasitoid wasp collection? How much of the material is slide mounted?
Coming to parasite collections, because we have a nearby one more museum which is called as National Bureau of Agriculturally Important Research. So there we have a lot of experts, plenty of experts. I think more than 10 or 15 experts are there who are working on the parasite collections. Mainly Dr. Ankita Gupta, then we have Veena Kumari, Prashant Mohan Raj. So there are people who are working on parasite collections, but we do still have some parasite collections.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Yashwant. There's one more question for you in the Q&A box if you'd like to type your answer in there. But we're going to move on, skipping right across the Indian Ocean, 8,250 kilometers away, to the National Museum, Bloemfontein, South Africa. Please welcome Dimo Daniels. Thank you. Let's get the tour rolling.
I am Jim Daniel, appointed as a research scientist at the National Museum. I'm currently working on systematic off-scarab beetles.
The National Museum Entomological Collection comprises two very big collections of flies and collections of beetles. Historically, the beetle collection was created in 1975 by the Portuguese Gunter Ferreira and his wife Maria Corinta Ferreira. Both were formerly employed at the Natural History Museum in Lourenço Marques, currently Maputo in Mozambique. Gunderico and Maria were interested in beetles taxonomy, and they worked for 4 years at the National Museum, which means they left Portugal in 1979. A few years later, between 1981 to 1992, Jacques Law took up a position as the head of Department of Entomology. Although he was working on systematic of weaver beetles, he did a massive collecting on scarabs and tenebrionids. The subsequent curators were focused on fish mouths and flies. So our beetle collection is mainly represented by Cuprionidae, Tenebrionidae, Cerombicidae, and scarabs include dung beetles and chafer beetles. Currently, our collection comprises over 150,000 specimens, of which 95,000 are databased. Our current curatorial project includes restoration of specimens from old drawers where specimens were kept into a plastic unit which does not fit properly the pin of the specimens, like these ones. Which means basically we are transferring the material from the plastic contained to a new unit trace system like these ones.
My name is Birgit Miller and I'm an entomologist at the National Museum Bloemfontein in South Africa, and I specialize on Diptera or true flies. I look after the non-Coleoptera, and we have small collections of bees and wasps, bugs and other orders. We have the most representative collection of silverfish or fish moths in the country thanks to the efforts of a previous entomologist, John Irish. Our Diptera collection started out mostly as bycatch from the coleopterists previously employed at the museum, and for decades the holdings never went above approximately 1,500 specimens. In 2008, Ashley Kirk-Spriggs was employed as head of department, and he was solely responsible for growing the collection to over 200,000 specimens in 8 years' time. I joined the museum in 2016, and in the beginning of 2019, Ashley Kirk-Spriggs went back to the UK. The collection is housed in cardboard unit trays of 3 sizes in typical glass top drawers. Our Diptera and Coleoptera collection is managed through specified collections management software, and we are in the process of recurating and migrating the smaller collections. Our Diptera collection is still a very young collection, with the majority of the material only determined to family level, but that is changing with every loan we send out. At present, we have holdings from 14 African countries and representatives of 108 African families. We would like to invite you to contact us for more information on the collection.
Another fascinating collection that I know that I would absolutely love to visit. Can you tell me and everyone else a little bit about the dung beetle collection?
Hi everybody. Yep. We have a very interesting collection. As I mentioned in the video, our Coleoptera collection were historically was based in Mozambique, and I don't know, for those ones who works on beetles, you know Maria Corinta Ferreira. She was a Portuguese based in Mozambique by that time, and she used to work on dung beetles. So when the couple, the husband and Maria Corinta Ferreira, moved to South Africa after 1975, they moved several material from Mozambique to South Africa, to National Museum. So our beetle collection, our dung beetle collection is quite interesting. It's got, we have a very good representation of type material, So I would like to welcome everybody who works on beetles to come and visit over there. We have very interesting material from Southern Africa to West Africa.
So there is another beetle question in the chat box from Chris. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Tenebrionid collection?
Yeah, the Tenebrionid collection. We recently was 2 years ago, Professor Law Skulls, he passed away, but he used to work on Tenebrionid and Cuprionidae. So he's the one, he did a lot of collecting on tenebrionids, and currently our collection holds at least 100 types of tenebrionids. So we have very good representation as well. So it's quite interesting to see if is there anybody interested on tenebrionid. Is welcome to our collection.
And it seems like we have a lot of beetle lovers in the chat box. How large is the chrysomelid collection?
Say what?
How large is the chrysomelid collection, leaf beetles?
Chrysomelid, oh, okay. It's not that big. It's more or less, I don't have a number in my mind, but it's not very big collection. It was by patch specimen. It's not very big collection. Our chrysomelid is not very big one.
And we have a fly question before we move on. For the foam mounting of the flies, were they mounted on their sides? And is that how the best way to show the features of small flies? The packing efficiency was amazing.
Is that the question? Oh,
the question is mounting them on their sides the best way to see their features?
Yes, they're mounted on the side.
Okay, so there are a few more questions in the chat box for you to answer, and we're going to move on to our next collections tour. So if you thought that one South African collections tour just isn't enough, we still have more. We're lucky enough to have another wonderful tour, this time from the Beetles Museum of Natural History in Pretoria. Please welcome Werner Stumpfer.
Hi, my name is Werner Stumpfer, and I recently joined the Beetles National Museum of Natural History as curator of Coleoptera. I am working on the systematics of dung beetles and related groups. The Natural History Museum, previously known as the Transvaal Museum, is situated in the city centre of Pretoria, South Africa. It was founded as the Staatsmuseum by the former South African Republic in 1892. The Natural History Museum houses one of the largest and most diverse beetle collections on the African subcontinent. All beetle families known from southern Africa are represented in the Coleoptera holdings. There are an estimated 1.3 million specimens in our collection. The collection is also rich in type material, with over 6,000 type specimens. The Coleoptera department was established in 1953. The Austrian entomologist Carl Koch was the first professional officer of the department. He is well known for his extensive taxonomic work on the Paleoarctic and African Tenebrionidae. Koch was also one of the founders of the Namib Desert Research Station in Gogabeb. This research station is still in existence today. In 1973, the Hungarian-born entomologist Dr. Sebastian Junga was appointed as the new director of the Coleoptera department. He was the son of Sebo Indrodi, who is well known for his work on the Dynastinae. Over the next 26 years, Indrodi Junga, with the help of his support staff, would go on to build an extraordinary beetle collection, and one of the most important collections in the country. During his career, Sebastian was responsible for the collection of 1,318 species of Coleoptera new to science. Many of these he described himself, while others were named after him by his colleagues and co-workers. Indrodi was a specialist on Plumbidae, Cibocephalidae, Tenebrionidae, and a number of other families. Indrodi also established an efficient system for recording, storing and retrieving data for the large number of specimens in the collection. This system is still in use, All specimens in the collection carry a field number or EY number, and each number is linked to the field and collecting data recorded in field books. The pin collection is housed on the second floor of the museum, mostly in standardized wooden drawers and cabinets. Our duplicate and unprocessed material is kept in ethanol in our wet collection. The most valuable components of the collection are the comprehensive collections of Southern African Tenebrionidae, the Carabidae, and Scarabaeinae. Other strong points in the collection include the terrestrial Adiphaga, other Scarabaeoidea, Hysteridae, Buprestidae, Coccinellidae, and the Cerambicidae. Another valuable and unique component of the collection is the large collection of Tenebrionidae larvae, housed in our wet collection. All larvae are linked by means of a unique identifier to the actual breeding adults in the main collection. The latter was the work of Koch and Schulze-Krozewski. Besides the well-represented Southern African fauna, the collection also contains a fair amount of reference material from other biogeographical regions.
Another fantastic collection, and a particularly impressive beetle collection too. But I'm sure that there are going to be many beetle questions that come up in the little chat box soon. But can you also tell us a little bit about other orders that are represented in the collections?
Sorry, Nicole, can you just repeat that last bit? My audio is not very good.
So we had a beautiful tour of a lot of the Coleoptera in your collection. Can you tell us a little bit about the other orders that are also in the Ditsong Museum?
Okay, yeah, besides the Coleoptera collection, there's also a very large Lepidoptera collection. And there's also a general entomology collection, the smallest of the three. At the moment, there's no curator in the Lepidoptera department, but we've just recently a new curator was appointed for the general entomology. I'm not familiar with the other collections, but yeah, they're very important. They're very nice collections.
So how was your collection affected, if all, by COVID?
It was complete shutdown for us. No visitors, no loans. Yeah, it was terrible.
And are you slowly opening up again, back in the collection?
Yeah, we're back to business. Yeah.
And what was the first thing you did entering back into the museum?
I went into the collection to see what it was about, because I joined the museum just before lockdown, and I didn't have a chance to see the collections until September.
So, how representative is your collection for Western African beetle fauna?
I don't know, I have to go and check, but I know Indrodi did a lot of work in Ghana, in Central Africa, so I think there could be some nice material from that part of the world, mostly scarabs, I guess, but I can check.
Well, I know that I'm particularly interested in scarabs, so that's great. We have another beetle question. How large are your Cerambicidae holdings?
It's quite massive. Yeah, I don't have exact numbers. Not all of our collections are data-based, so I don't have exact numbers. But it's substantial. Sorry, I can't give exact numbers, but it's extensive.
That's, I feel most of...
6 cabinets full of, and that's a couple of hundred drawers of Cerambicids. It's big. It's big.
We have a similar question about weevils.
Yeah, the Weevils is also quite extensive. Again, I don't have exact numbers. I've only been there a short while, so but you're welcome to email me and ask me stuff, and I can go and look it up for you and find out.
Okay, great. And we are going to put everyone's contact details. We'll make them available. I think they're also in the program as well. So one of the best things about all of these collections tours is hopefully we're putting faces to names and introducing new people all over around the world. So any follow-up questions, please feel free to contact all of our amazing presenters. There might be, there's a couple more questions in the Q&A box if you want to pop over and answer them as well. But thank you very much, Werner. I'm loving all of these tours so far. So next up, we're heading north on another long haul flight. Please welcome Mariana Simos, Curator of Collections, and the Team Coleoptera technical staff, Mandy Schroeder and Laura Marrero Palmer from the Senckenberg Deutsches Entomological Institute from Münchenberg, Hamburg. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Germany. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mariana Simões. I'm the Coleoptera Curator here at the SDA. Acronym that stands for German Entomological Institute under the research group Senckenberg. We are the only institute within Germany dedicated exclusively to the study of insects. First, let's go over a bit of our history. The institute was founded by the beetle researcher Gustav Kratz in 1886, located in Berlin, and it was called German Entomological National Museum. In 1920, the name of the institute was changed to German Entomological Institute under the direction of Walter Horn, also a Coleoptera researcher. During the World War II, seeking to protect the collection, the institute changed its location, ending in Eberswalde. Simultaneously, it lost its independence and became the Division of Taxonomy of Insects under the German Academy of Agricultural Science. Later in 2000, it became one of the departments of ZALF, what stands for Center of Agricultural Science, moving to Münchenberg, its current location. In 2009, the institute was absorbed by Senckenberg and is currently directed by Thomas Schmidt. Now we are located in Münchenberg, East Germany, around 45 kilometers from Berlin. Our institute is subdivided into the Information Center Entomology, including library and archive with 6 staff members, and Systematic and Biogeography of Insects, including 6 scientists, 7 technicians, 2 grad students, and 1 volunteer. Let's go into our building. In the first floor, we have the Information Center Entomology, composed by the library and the archive. Our library is one of the most complete entomological libraries in the world. This, due to the Institute's long history and the exchange of our internally produced journals with journals of other institutions, procedure that started in 1920 under the direction of Walter Horn. In the second floor is where the direction and part of the staff has their office. That's where we also find the PCR and the ECN lab. In the third floor is where we have the technical staff lab, photo lab, and the collection. In our collection, we have amber fossils, alcohol material, but most of the specimens are dry and pinned. It is preserved in 18 degrees Celsius to reduce the humidity in the air, and the boxes are arranged in electronic compactors. Our collection is divided into Coleoptera, Diptera, Hymenoptera, Strepsiptera, and Siphonoptera, Lepidoptera, Trichoptera, and Neuropteroidea, and Hemimetabolon. Among those, we have around 3.5 million specimens, with the largest group being Coleoptera, represented by around 2 million specimens and 14,000 primary types. And on the fourth floor, we have the conference room and the DNA extraction lab. One of the highlights of our institute is the current digitization of Coleoptera with the project Carib, focusing on digitizing types belonging to the family Carabidae. Project's intention is to create a workflow to digitize other groups and maximize the collection accessibility. It consists of 4 basic steps. Firstly, unifying the collections of diverse collections. As I mentioned before, our collection has a long history and thus contains collections of several different collectors and traders. Secondly, we added labels to specimens, resorted, assessed synonyms and primaries and secondary types. Lastly, we took high-resolution pictures of primary types and their labels. The project is still ongoing and we hope to be done by the end of the year 2020. But we plan to keep digitization as ground beetles only make up 6% of Seckenbach's insect population. I hope this video could provide you an overview of our facilities. If you need any information or material, please feel free to get in touch. And of course, if you're welcome to visit us at any time after Corona.
Thank you very much. It was great to see not only the collections, but also the other facilities that you have available. So many really cool technology there. So we have some questions filtering in. You have some really interesting grouping of orders. Can you elaborate on the decision behind combining Hymenoptera, Strepsiptera, and Siphonoptera?
Actually, I can't. This was a decision that was made before they moved from Eberswalde to where we are now in Munchenberg. And of curators, we are 5 curators. One that turned out to be actually the director at the same time. So it was mostly trying to distribute some of the groups, and mostly because of the amount, but not common origin or like natural groups or anything. So that's why we ended up organizing this way. But nothing specifically.
Okay. Would the Carabid photos be accessible to researchers who can't visit the collection?
Yeah, that's our main goal right now. Well, first we're taking one point must be said is this: the digitization is being made mostly firstly to the types, and we have all this data in a database, but that we can't export. So we are actually working on exporting this database, making the database also available, and at the same time the photos. So this is ongoing, and the Seckenbach is working towards this, and hopefully within the next year we can give you a more concrete answer about it.
And this is mainly the reason why we are doing all this digitalization process, to make our collection more accessible to scientists all over the world. So this is the goal for the future for us.
So the next question is a blast from the past. How extensive is the amber collection?
I must tell you that we don't know, in the sense that, well, when it moved from Eberswalde to Munchenberg, we did an inventory, and we have the pictures of all the drawers, but the embers, many of them, there's no one working on it actually, like identifying all of them. So it's hard to say how many we have, how many are actually valid or not. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know for sure how many drawers we have. Do you know, Mandy? I
think there are about 50 drawers of ember fossils, and I know that currently a colleague of us is doing a kind of a digitalization of the ember collection, taking pictures of the ember fossils and checking from which groups we have ember fossils there.
We're actually trying to, we're looking for the best way to take pictures of these embers. That's true. Recently, we got a new photo system, and we were thinking about using that also for the ember, but I'm not quite sure if that will work out for all the embers to make a decent inventory. But,
and we are currently also checking for methods how to preserve our ember fossils. So we are cooperating with colleagues who know a bit better about ember fossils, and they try to give us some tips how to do the curation of that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I think there is one more question for you in the Q&A box, but we're going to move on to keep on time. Thank you very much for a wonderful tour.
Thank you.
So for those of you who are planning on attending the International Congress of Entomology in Helsinki this year, the Finnish Museum of Natural History, Finnish National Museum may have already been on your radar. And while you might not have got to visit this year, the entomology team at the Finnish Museum, Jaakko Mitlala, Pasi Sivonen, and Sergei Tarasov have put together a fantastic collections tour for you. So you do get to see the collections in 2020. So introducing Sergei. Thank you.
Entomology team at the museum, and I'm also the curator. Welcome to the Finnish Museum of Natural History. I am Pasi Sihvonen.
Bear with us for a little technical issues. We'll just restart that video and share the right screen.
The Finnish Museum of Natural History. I am Pasi Sihvonen. I'm the head of the entomology team at the museum, and I'm also the curator of Lepidoptera. And behind me you can see our insect hall and the drawers and the cabinets which are full of insects. And currently it's estimated that we have roughly 10 million specimens in the collection that have been collected over the period of 200 years. We are currently underground in the city of Helsinki because the room where the samples are held, it's temperature and humidity controlled because we want to have optimal conditions for our insects. But let's have a look how the collection looks like. So as you can see, our collections are in metal cabinets, and what I will now show you is just one typical example of our Lepidoptera collection. And here you can see, for instance, that our specimens are in units, and of course they are arranged taxonomically. And here you can see some of the Lepidoptera collected from Thailand very recently. And this is something that is actively being used, for instance, in molecular research. The Lepidoptera collection is full of historic material, particularly from the boreal areas and also from Russia. But then also we have very good coverage of global Lepidoptera fauna. And one speciality in the Lepidoptera collection are the caterpillars. We have a huge collection of inflated caterpillars.
Hello, I am Sergei Tarasov and I'm a beetle curator at the Finnish Museum of Natural History. Here we have a very abundant and big collection of beetles that includes both historical and recent material. Specifically, our collection is famous for having a Mannerheim collection and Mannerheim types. I studied on beetles, and Finnish Museum of Natural History has super cool collection of dung beetles that were mainly collected by Ilkka Hansky in Madagascar and Borneo. Come here to take a look at these cool beetles from Madagascar, Helictopleurus. We have large historical collection of Carl Gustav Mannerheim that includes around 100,000 specimens, 20,000 species, and around 800 types. Come to work with the collection, you are always welcome.
We also have a large collection of insects stored in ethanol. And as you can see, we have plenty of specimens here stored in these jars. And here, for instance, you can see Trichoptera caterpillars or Trichoptera larvae, so caddisflies, and we have plenty of these materials, and you are also welcome to use these. More information about our museum will be available on the following slides, and please also use Synthesis grant to visit us. Now you have seen parts of the physical collection, but because this is sometimes difficult to access, in Luomus we have decided to digitize our entire collections and put them online so that anyone can use and access these data. So species.fi is the online portal where you can find all this information.
Well, thank you. So we're just waiting for some questions to appear. But one of the things on my radar is if the world turns back to normal and ice happens next year, what is the best way for us to organize a research visit to your collection?
So you just need to contact us and that's it. And probably there will be a special website during Congress meeting that you can use to book your place or to book your visit to the collection.
We just launched a little poll too if you are planning on attending ICE, so please fill that in. So Crystal asks us, can you tell us a little bit more about your conveyor belt system?
You mean this photo camera system, right? Or which conveyor belt system?
So, just says conveyor belt system.
What is this?
But maybe we'll clarify that one a little bit later in the chat. And moving on, is there a specific reason for the use of the transparent plastic unit trays?
So transparent plastic unit trays, you can cover them separately with a cap, right? And it's transparent, so you can see what specimens are inside. But if we're talking generally, well, probably not. It just was chosen in a way to use these transparent unit trays. So, but yeah, it's a good question to think about. What are the pros and cons for either transparent and non?
So does the museum assist scientists with collecting permits to collect in Finland?
Say again, please.
Does the museum assist scientists with collecting permits to collect in Finland?
Probably yes, why not? So please contact us and we can help with it, or at least we can direct.
And then we have two more questions. Is the Mannerheim collection digitized yet, or is it planned to be?
It's planned to be. It's not digitized yet.
But
then, actually, you can, if you want to see certain types on specific times, you can send us requests and we will probably do it quick.
Just relating to that, it looks like some of the historical collections are still housed in their original drawers. Are you planning to rehouse them, or are you going to keep them in that original condition?
Good question, actually. Yes, Mannerheim collection is entirely in the original drawers, and I think for the time being it will stay there. So, well, because they basically fulfill all the needs that we by far need to keep Mannerheim types and collection.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Sergey, and for everyone else who presented those first few virtual tours. We just have a short break planned now. So everyone feel free to grab yourself a coffee, walk around, and we'll resume promptly in 10 minutes from now. So if you don't need a break, continue to engage in the chat box, and we'll also launch a couple of poll questions. Okay, everyone, welcome back. We'll start up in a minute or so, but it's amazing to see that we have 250 people in this virtual ECN meeting, and just sharing the poll results for whether or not people are planning on attending ICE in Helsinki next year. But okay. Well, another collection you may have missed visiting this year is the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. Spinach was originally planned to be held there and was one of the first conferences to be cancelled due to COVID. I'm sure that there are many people here that were also looking forward to seeing that collection. With that, Ashley Whitman will now host a tour and give us a chance to wow her with the collection and also show off some of her favorite specimens. So once again, a quick reminder to direct any questions to panelists into the Q&A box. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the National Museum's Collection Centre in Edinburgh, sunny Scotland. Come on in, we haven't got long. So we're currently in the museum's invertebrate dry store. I say dry store because we also have a wet store. But the dry store is where most of our entomological collection is contained. The collection size is estimated at 2.5 million specimens, and responsible for its care, curation and development is myself, Ashley Whiffen, Assistant Curator of Entomology, and our Principal Curator of Invertebrates, Vladimir Blagodorov. Hey Vlad.
Hello, welcome to the museum.
So our collection is over 200 years in the making, and as you might expect, it's particularly rich in Scottish material. Now to give you an overview, I'm going to share just a few highlights. One of the strongest parts of our collection is the Parasitica. The ichneumonids alone occupy more than 400 drawers so far, and this strength is thanks to our former Keeper of Natural History, Dr. Mark Shaw. The quality of the collection is a testament to his dedication and passion for rearing parasitic wasps. So the collection's not only species rich, but it's extremely data rich too, due to the reared nature of these specimens, and it's what makes it one of our most frequently loaned parts of the collection. Another strength of ours is our international collection of dragonflies and damselflies. This large collection is the result of Scottish taxonomist Kenneth Morton, who travelled Europe in pursuit of Odonata and some of the smaller orders. His collection came to us in 1940, and it contains many of his figured specimens, as well as a number of his types. One of our most interesting beetle collections is that of Professor Frank Balfour-Brown. Yes, the Balfour-Brown, renowned for his work on water beetles and a pioneer of biological recording. His collection came to us in the 1960s, and it contained over 20,000 or so aquatic Coleoptera specimens. Now we've kept it in its original layout due to its unique presentation. So you can see that Balfour-Brown was way ahead of the game, and he used his own bespoke unit trays, which might be among some of the first examples. If you like water beetles, then another collection that came in around the same time was that of Dorothy Jean Jackson. Now, she was a Scottish entomologist based in St Andrews, and she made valuable contributions to water beetle research, particularly around the themes of ecology, flight capacity, and even their parasites. Thanks to the help of some brilliant volunteers, we now have a full species index for our entire LEP collection, which is more than 450,000 specimens. Now, contained within this, we have some very special Scottish collections. Robert Logan began studying moths in the 1830s, at the tender age of just 12. He published several papers on Scottish Lepidoptera and amassed a large collection. But what's really interesting about Logan is that he was also a talented illustrator. So as well as his pin collection, we also possess his original drawings. Now, Logan was working on a publication called Illustrations of Scottish Lepidoptera, but due to scandalous behaviour, he lost his wealth and therefore the funding for the book. It's one of the many archives that we hope to digitise, so that his work can still be shared, even if it's not quite in the way he originally intended. Another precious Scottish collection came from Alice Balfour. 100 years ago, she was busy pursuing moths in and around Whittingham, her family's estate, which is just east of Edinburgh. Now, she spent almost her entire life in this small corner of Scotland, and she recorded the moths there in great detail. She collected over 10,000 specimens and recorded all her observations in great detail in her notebooks. I'm pleased to say that her collection is coming to life once more through a digitisation project led by one of our volunteers, Dr. Catty Baird. So all the records from her specimens and her notebooks are being extracted and will feed into the national datasets. Arguably one of the most comprehensive collections of British moths was compiled by Edward Pelham Clinton. Ted, or Teddy to his colleagues, he was assistant keeper of natural history here at the museum, where he curated almost everything but moths. For 53 years, he devoted all his spare time to recording and collecting moths, and he kept the most meticulous notes in his field diaries. Digitisation of his field diaries is currently in progress, with over 17,000 pages scanned and transcription now underway. This covers over 1,500 localities, over 2,000 species, 35,000 collected specimens, and over 160,000 observations. Upon his passing, a large bequest was made to the museum, and this legacy that he's left behind has helped fund several research posts as well as curatorial work, which we will be forever grateful for. And finally, to the collection of Louis Dufresne. This was our founding natural history collection, purchased by the University of Edinburgh in 1819. Dufresne was a French taxidermist and former curator at the Museum of Natural History in Paris. His collection contains 12,000 insects, with specimens originating from North and Central America, West Africa, and Australia. The Australian material was undoubtedly collected during the Bowden expedition of 1800. His collection is rich in type material, and I'm pleased to say that we are currently rehousing and digitising these. There are some 200 beetle types described by Olivier, and there are about 60 Lepidoptera types described by Goddard. Dufresne was also the conservator for the private collection of the Empress Josephine, and some of the Goddard species are named after her. However, of all his specimens, these are my favourite. So we usually host between 150 to 200 visitors to the collection each year, and this includes a mixture of professional and amateur entomologists, students, artists, and also tours for the general public. Now, although we can't host any visits right now, if you've got any questions about the collection, please don't hesitate to get in touch.
Thank you very much, Ashley. I have collections envy, particularly of your archives. But we have some questions. One about the scandalous behavior of the Lepidopterists. Can you expand?
Yeah, I knew that was going to leave people intrigued. Well, not to speak ill of the dead, of course, and the scandalous behaviour is probably not something that would be scandalous at all these days. You've got to remember this was early 1800s, very well-to-do, wealthy family, and he had relations with the maid and had an illegitimate child. So his horrible family kicked him out and he lost all his wealth and therefore the funding for the book, which is such a shame because his illustrations are absolutely beautiful and it would have been a wonderful piece of work.
Okay. How's the ant collection like in the museum?
It's actually really small. Yeah, that's from Matt. Matt, I know that you're collecting ants, so if you want to help us develop that part of the collection, we would of course welcome any donations. So yeah, that's an area that's a bit weak and we definitely need to build upon.
One more question. Could you tell us more about the Central American material that you have?
Yeah, we don't know too much. So at the moment, we're still documenting the collection. It's really just the Lepidoptera that we have a kind of a rough guide on at the moment. Coleoptera has not been explored yet, but mostly it's historic. So we don't have any current material from Central America.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ashley. So now we're going to cross the Irish Sea and head straight to Dublin Island. Please welcome Aidan O'Hanlon as we're treated to a tour of the National Museum Ireland.
Hello and welcome to the National Museum of Ireland. My name is Aidan O'Hanlon. I'm the curator of entomology at the Natural History Division, and it's my great privilege to bring you on a quick whistle-stop tour of our entomological collections, which will begin here in our fabulous Natural History Museum in Dublin city centre, which is known locally as the Dead Zoo. International viewers might be aware of our museum through the writings of the wonderful Stephen Jay Gould, who came to visit our museum in the 1970s to research our collection of giant Irish elk. Stephen wrote a gorgeous essay entitled Alive, Alive, Oh, which is sort of a love letter to the Victorian cabinet-style presentation of our exhibits. And in fact, when Stephen visited in 1971, the museum hadn't changed much at all since it first opened its doors in 1857. But a building this old does have its problems, and it's starting to show its age, so we're undergoing essential roof repairs ahead of a planned redevelopment project. For the past 163 years, the entire entomological collection was tucked away in back rooms in this building, and as of 2 years ago, it's now stored in greatly improved conditions in our off-site museum stores. So access is now greatly improved. We always have a steady stream of researchers, students and other people who are interested in coming and viewing and studying the collections. The roots of this collection stem from the late 1700s, when the Royal Dublin Society purchased the natural history collections of Nathaniel Gottfried Leski. Although it was mostly a mineralogical collection, it also contained many zoological specimens collected by the likes of Johann Fabricius and Johann Gmelin, which will no doubt be familiar names among entomologists. Our natural history collections have been expanding in scope and content ever since, and our entomological collections now contain about 1 million specimens from around the world, 1 million specimens that we know about. It's our national collection, so a particular strength are the Irish insects, of which there are about 12,000 species. One of the reasons we know there's about 12,000 species of insect in Ireland is through the work of past curators over the past 150 years of the museum, who cared for and carefully studied the insects in this collection. Some of our most scientifically important specimens come from an Irish entomologist called Alexander Halliday, who was from County Down in what is now Northern Ireland. Halliday died in 1870 and his collection was purchased by the National Museum of Ireland. He was particularly interested in the parasitic Hymenoptera, so as a result our Hymenoptera collection is extremely rich in type material. Due to Halliday's reputation as an international expert and a friendly person who would help anybody identify anything, we've even fortunately ended up with a considerable number of specimens taken by Mr. Charles Darwin on his famous Voyage of the Beagle. These were curated quite a while ago. I'm not sure how well this will show up on video, but you can see some nice familiar handwriting there collected from Bahia in Brazil. Aside from Halliday, our collection is very type rich anyway. Almost any drawer you pull out in the collection will contain type materials described by the likes of William Kirby, who's a famous lepidopterist and the very first official entomology curator at the museum. Other important collections and collectors include Francis Walker, James Halbert, Edwin Bullock, Arthur Wilson Stelfox, and Cynthia Longfield, who was a well-known Irish entomologist who earned the nickname Madame Dragonfly for her work on the Odonata. One of my favourite parts of the collection is this old cabinet containing mostly Coleoptera collected by Edwin Bullock, who was an Englishman who relocated to Ireland in the late 1800s and moved down to County Kerry in the south of the country, where he collected insects in Killarney National Park, or what is now Killarney National Park. And a really cool and sometimes kind of annoying feature of Bullock's collection style is that he would often card beetles on the one pin stacked on top of each other. So for example, this pin contains 4 weevils, all of the same species, stacked on top of each other. But what it means is that each of them will have a different timestamp, and so it'll give us a really incredible past distribution and past phenological record of insect life in a very important nature reserve in Ireland. Aside from the well-curated dried general collection, we also possess hundreds and hundreds of store boxes containing specimens awaiting rediscovery, awaiting integration into the general collection, and oftentimes awaiting re-identification. As with probably most natural history collections, we also have a lot of fluid preserved specimens, and we're currently in the process of rehousing these in improved conditions in our spirit stores as part of our overall museum redevelopment project. Another important part of our collection is our library of books, journals and other old scientific periodicals, which have also recently vacated our museum building as part of our redevelopment. Redeveloping a Victorian building has some very niche challenges, but it also gave us the opportunity to store all of our entomologically related research collections in the one building for the first time in over, well, the 230-year-old history of this collection. So we now have a one-stop shop for entomological research, which is now more accessible than at any point in the museum's history. I'll close out by highlighting some of my favourite parts of the collection and the stories behind them. So for example, this little Spanish cigar box shows off the international nature of collections, I think, quite well. So it's a collection of foreign insects, Italian insects, that were collected.
Bear with us for a second while Karen shares the right screen.
Insects, beetles, and it comes with a list, which is a list of species. And beside each specimen is a price, which is given in German marks. And what's interesting too is that it's billed out in French to the Institution of Science and Art in Dublin, which was a previous name for the museum. So what happened was a French person went to Italy, collected a lot of beetle specimens, wrote up a receipt, billed it out in German marks to the Dublin Museum in Ireland, and sent them here in a Spanish cigar box. Another personal favourite of mine is this store box, which contains beetles collected from an island called Inistrehull, which is way up off the north coast of County Donegal at the top of Ireland. If you go any further north, you hit Iceland. It was collected by the then lighthouse keeper, a man called DJ O'Sullivan. And to be honest, most of the species in here are very commonly found across the entire country. But what I like most about this collection are these stationery cards which say Sir Stát Éireann, which is the Irish language for Irish Free State. And now the Irish Free State was a country that was formed in 1922 after a war of independence was fought against the United Kingdom. The modern incarnation of Ireland, which is officially known as the Republic of Ireland, wouldn't exist yet for another 20 or 30 years. So what I think is particularly special about this store box is that it shows that even in times of revolution and war and civil war and post-colonial growing pains and general poverty and misery, that there will always be the dedicated few people who commit their time to studying the natural world around them and drawing great inspiration from the creatures that they share the country with, which is something worth remembering in 2020. If I had 100 years to talk about this collection, we'd barely even begin to scratch the surface of just how cool it is. So we'll have to leave it there. But if you have any queries, please do get in touch anytime, because I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.
Another fantastic tour with some amazing historical collections that I know that we're all dying to see. So a couple of questions in the box. So the insects that you showed that were all on the same pin, are they from the same locality, just with different dates?
Most of the time, but not always. They're from the same county in Ireland, but it's one of the bigger ones, and it's from the same what is now a nature reserve, a national park. But they could be from within, I don't know, they could be in separate hectads anyway, so they could be from separate 10-kilometer grids. Most of the time they are from the same general area, but different dates. But yeah, it's a mixed bag.
So
that's the only part of the collection that does have the beetles stacked on top of each other like that. But it's, yeah, somebody said in the comments maybe there were metal shortages. It could well have been something as simple as that.
So you have some like totally amazing historical collections there. Are you also still collecting recent material from these same nature preserves?
Personally, I'm not, and nobody affiliated with the museum is. There's one entomologist, which is me, but we do have links with people from the universities around Ireland, and anybody who studies entomology here will be aware of our museum and will send us anything that they find. So we're not actively asking anybody to send stuff, but I mean, I do know the entomologists around the country, so they'll know to send me whatever cool stuff they happen across. And there was actually, on that particular nature reserve collection, there was somebody that works, he's a park ranger that works in that nature reserve now, that wants to maybe think about digitizing the collection and see how the kind of faunistic community has changed over time. So it's a collection that the guy who put that together back in the late 1800s, early 1900s wouldn't have imagined it would ever be used in that way. But of course, insects were a lot more numerous back then than they are now. So it's taken on a whole new importance, I guess.
Okay, excellent. And there is a sort of follow-up on that question. How would you handle digitizing or databasing those specimens from the same pin? Would you treat them separately or as a group?
Separately, yeah. I mean, they're separate data points. Each specimen would have been collected on different, not always, but mostly collected on different days or from slightly different areas. Each one might have notes of what plant species they were swept from, if they were swept, or how they were collected in another way. So even though they're stacked on the same pin, they're unique specimens. And what's annoying is as well, in a drawer, there could be 100 pins of the same species, and each pin might have 4 or 5 specimens on it as well. So there's only one cabinet of about 100 drawers that have these specimens, but I actually don't know how many specimens of that type there are, but a few thousand anyway. But it's really cool. I'll get around to it someday, but it's no easy task. It's not low-hanging fruit at the moment. So,
well, thank you very much, Aidan. There are a number of questions for you still in the Q&A box, so feel free to answer them. And we are going to move on. And while we won't hit all of the continents around the world today, this session does truly live up to the name Collections Tours of the World. Next up on our Around the World tour is Ana Delmoren, who is going to give us an update on the state of Brazilian entomological collections.
Hello and good morning or afternoon, depending on when. My name is Ana Delmoren, and first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the ECN meeting for the invitation and for this opportunity. I have attended several ECN meetings in the past, and they were always among the best events I ever attended, and it illustrates what is real community for people with shared interests, exchanging experiences and material. I would very much like to be with you all, but the overall situation please brought me the chance to participate once more, although remotely. I'm the curator of the Adalberto Antônio Varela Freire Entomological Collection in Natal, northeastern Brazil. And you may remember me from a flyer I sent to the ECN last year asking for materials and donations. That actually had an incredibly good turnout. And I'm very thankful for all that came up, especially from BioClip and from John Oswald and Karen Wright and Jim Mori at Texas A&M, and everyone that helped to get material organized. And I am to receive pending our eternal struggle with red tape to get these things to the country. Today, I would like to show you a little bit of our collection. However, as I mentioned last year, our collection here is very atypical. And because I'm the only Brazilian collection presenting in this section, we thought it would be misleading not to take the chance to show you a few numbers about other Brazilian collections as well, and how our entomological collection landscape is looking like these days. The numbers I'm going to show you are based on a survey conducted by my co-author, Dr. ECN Marinoni, who is the president of the Brazilian Society of Zoology and curator at the José Santiago Mori Entomological Collection in Paraná. And she's also the coordinator of the network of biological collections in Paraná State, Text Online. First of all, I would like to show that digitization-wise, in spite of some resistance in the early 2000s, entomological collections data is increasingly available both from web pages and online databases, like SpeciesLink and CPR, and both feed into VIVIV. SpeciesLink and CPR are the two main portals for Brazilian collections data. CPR is also cataloging the collection profiles and is now based on the tools from Atlas of the Living Australia. And regarding the survey, 55 entomological collections belonging to 41 institutions replied, representing just under 20% of the total of 301 zoological collections. So it's quite representative for a survey. The map shows the distribution of collections in Brazilian territory. And as you can see, most collections are located in the southeastern and southern regions, which is for a significant part due to historical development and social reasons. Important regions with unique faunas are distributed all over the country, but the ones with most evidence in the recent months are the Amazon and the Cerrado, which are not as well served in terms of collections and sampling, right? It comes to no surprise that a significant part of these collections, in fact, over 50% of them, are located in public universities. Only 10% of them belong to actual museums. This has an important implication for the stability of collections in the long term, because so far, very few universities have a collections policy. In the past 10 years, a positive movement towards establishing these as patrimony is being pushed by researchers. And in some cases, it produced important results, such as the policy for state collections in Paraná, which means a compromise with the state to ensure stability and resources for infrastructure. In other cases, there is always the risk that after a taxonomist retires, his or her collection may have to be moved to a larger collection. In the U.S., we know this practice is relatively common, but it still may look foreign to many in Brazil. The solution has been that in some large insect survey projects that were funded in the 2010s, they include strict terms regarding final repository of the voucher specimens in one of those most stable and larger collections. This map is a little out of date, but here you can see that there is a significant concentration in terms of number of specimens. The four largest collections are the one in São Paulo, Paraná, Pará, Emílio Beldi, and INPA in Manaus, with over 1 million specimens. The fifth largest collection, the National Museum, unfortunately, as you probably heard, was lost in recent years in the Great Fire. However, there are some locally important collections as well, which we can highlight and have benefited from a good number of grants that were offered more or less between 2005 and 2015. And some of these collections have focused importance. And others have a representative number of specimens of certain taxa, such as Mato Grosso for scarab beetles, and Paraná for bees and butterflies, and Espírito Santo for Hymenoptera, and Estadual do Maranhão with samples from both the Northeast and Amazon, since they are right nearby that area. Our collection here at Rio Grande do Norte is in its early stages of establishment. It was started in the 1980s by a doctor, which was also a naturalist, and it has become a local important repository for specimens that were collected in a largely unsurveyed biome, the Caatinga, which is Brazilian semi-arid. A new collections building was inaugurated in 2010. Some collections, like the ornithology and herpetology ones, have already moved, but we still remain the main building because we're trying to adequate the building to our necessities to ensure proper preservation of the material. We haven't moved, and as you can see, the material is not in drawers yet. This is Alberto's way of preserving things in coffee jars. There are also hundreds of pages of his field notes, and with his very particular style of handwriting, and we're looking for ways to get this all digitized and into a database so that we can have this collection digitized in the first place. We're about halfway through basically inventory. So that's the situation we're right now. But considering that I started here like 1 year ago, a little more than 1 year ago, I believe that we made good progress and we're moving in the right direction. Another thing that I would like to show you is that I know several of you may have questions regarding legislation, and from that perspective, I would like to ensure that our researchers are as concerned as you, and the scientific societies for zoology, botany, and microbiology have been very active to ensure the laws do not become an impediment to collaboration. After all, we know that when crisis hits, and we are in the middle of the world crisis, money for science is one of the first to go down, which means our creativity and alliances for collaborations are more important than ever. And together with the Brazilian Society of Zoology, Luciane and I have been working to establish a network like ECN in Brazil. And the society has approved that this meeting would become part of their biannual event back in 2018. And the official meeting took place just earlier in this year. And we are trying to get this moving, and we hope that collections, both big and small, will benefit from it. So I hope I gave you a decent idea, although by no means this is complete, of what is going on in here. If you have suggestions, comments, or just would like to have a chat, don't be shy to reach out to us. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anna. It's really great to see how those supplies and donations from both ECN members and BioEquip has helped with the really early stages of getting this collection housed well. So we have a question in the question box. Anna, can you tell us how big the chrysomelid collection is?
I'm not sure if you refer particularly to our collection here in Natal or the overall collections in Brazil. If you're looking for chrysomelids, I would tell you that the first places to check are with the curators in São Paulo and in Paraná, because those are the largest ones, I believe. We have a few samples here. They are not completely inventoried yet, but as soon as we can, we are going to upload our data set to CBBR, so that is likely to be found by GBIF as well.
Okay, great. And I have a question for you. You mentioned the formation of a very similar entomological collections network for Brazil. That sounds really exciting. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Some of you met me when I was a student at Texas A&M, and I always tried to make sure to attend the ECN meetings since I was there. So I had a lot of good experience, like seeing how the people organize the network and the support, especially that they gave when Floyd was doing the courses and everything. So that was really important. So when I came back and I saw that like lots of curators have the same questions and the same kinds of challenges, being them like large collections or small collections, we all have the same problems. How do I digitize this? How do I get all the databases to work? And how can we make sure that we get decent policies and we ensure the permanence of our collection, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I brought this idea to the Society of Zoology, and they embraced it So we are gonna try, and right now we are at the stage in which like we have a slot at the biannual meeting. So it's a start, but we have to expand, of course, on the online presence, which is in the very, very early stages.
Sounds like an absolutely excellent initiative. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
So last but not least, to wrap up this first session of the virtual collections tours, we welcome Giovanni Fagua with a behind-the-scenes tour of the entomological collections of the Javeriana University, Bogota, Colombia. Thank you.
Hello, thank you.
Javeriana University has a story of continuous improvement. After a modest beginning, the personal efforts of students and professors enhance the heritage of Jesuitic researchers that increase number and quality of specimens and facilities day by day. The collection started here 50 years ago in the general building number 5354 known as Biological Science. However, with time, the demand for space made evident the need for a more adequate space for biological collections. In 2011, after 10 years of laborious administrative work, the university started the construction of the new building number 55.
Well, but wait a minute. That is the construction area of the new building of the Faculty of Science. Please, remember the place for the end of this tour. 15 years ago, I asked several of you guys for the best condition for an entomological collection. Well, we could include the majority of your recommendations in the current space that was adequate in the basement of the now 6 years old building number 55, just behind of the old building of Biological Science.
And why in the basement? Well, Bogota is a city where earthquakes and telluric movements are very frequent. And the basement is the safest space to reduce possible damages to biological specimens. In addition, we are surrounded by streets with permanent and dense traffic, and because of both seismicity and traffic vibration, we decided to make the basement the space for biological collections. This is the current space for the zoological collections. The collection has an office space and a general area to work with microscopes and stereoscopes of different optical power. More powerful equipment can be used, but these types of equipment are in the laboratories of entomology and limnology, both placed in the 5354 building. These are the fridge and the -80 freezers to store the molecular samples obtained from the zoological specimens of the collections. This is the room to store reactive, the field notebooks repository, some samples, entomological specimens spinned and stored in liquid. Here we have a dragonfly from the collection, the thermal printer, more samples, the collection windows. We know that this is a mistake, yet architects made the change without asking me before. And now, our business. This is the room of the type specimens, the material store room, the collection of specimens stored in liquid, and the collection of specimens stored in dry and entomological specimens stored in liquid. The lights are turned on by the sound. You guys can see the system of fire detection and extinction. The data logger to recording temperature and moisture. The windows again. We have our own system for specimen stored in liquid. This follows the theory of layers of protection and separates the specimen in glass vaccine tubes. This kind of tubes are cheap, easy to find and store, and the caps have the same advantages. The tubes are deposited in transparent boxes of good quality plastic that are cheap and easy to find and store too. All they are produced by several local companies, and because of that we have a permanent offer for both products. Each tube has a label of data and a serial number, and this number is labeled on the cap. Each box has the label of the taxon deposit and their serial too. And this is the section of pin insects. Here are some reduvide curated by Dimitri Forero, the current coordinator of biological collections. More ants with their respective identifications. Beetles, the Scarabeidae identified by John Cesar Neita of the Humboldt Institute, another institution with a very good insect collection here in Colombia. And this is my group, butterflies, principally Papilionidae. The genus Parides and the other 20,000 specimens in hundreds of entomological boxes. The entomological collection has over 1 million specimens of Arachnida and Insecta from the Colombian Amazonic region, the Colombian Andes, the Colombian Biogeographic Chocó, among other places, several places. Our taxa of emphasis are Lepidoptera, principally Papilionoidea, Hemiptera, Heteroptera, ants, several taxa of Coleoptera and families, and Arachnida, principally the orders different to spiders. We have a politic of open doors for taxonomical specialists and graduate students. Well, this was a short trip by the collections of the Javeriana University in Bogota, Colombia. Thank you. But remember, wait for a minute. Currently, Javeriana University is constructing a new building for the Faculty of Science. This new 13 floors building has an additional space to cover the continuous growth of our biological collections. Again, in the safety space of the basement, we are completing an additional and better area for both botanical and zoological collections.
Another very, very impressive tour with some beautiful facilities and beautiful specimens. We don't have any questions in the Q&A box, but so for the new building and the expansion, can you tell us what is planned to be moved into there? Are you moving a subsection of the collection?
Well, this is currently a fight between the different branches of the collection, because we have everything in this space because it's the better condition for everyone. And currently the idea is that entomology will be at least 3 or 4 or 5 parts in the new space, with the limnological collection and basically for this principal taxa, and a new complete space for the botanical collection that currently is in a very regular place to preserve the condition of the better condition for the specimens.
So for people who would like to visit or borrow specimens, who is the best contact to reach out to?
In reality, we can borrow specimens. However, we have a very strong problem with the legal part of this, because we can make the borrow. However, we need to wait for at least 6 or 8 months, being realistic, because the legal form here are very, very, very slow in the requirements that we need to complete the borrow. In this case, and this is the emphasis of this presentation, we are very interested in trying to invite people, researchers or graduate students to work in the space. And the idea of this space is to work with the specialists with the additional advantage that includes some of our students to increase our capacities for identification in general.
Perfect. So a question from the Q&A box. What is the oldest material you have in your collection?
It's not too old. It's a butterfly of 1936 of Pedaliodin, a satyrin butterfly that was collected by the Hermano Apolinar Maria, that was a famous collector here of this age. And yeah, this is the in the case of insects. In the case of botanical specimens, we have 200 years old material.
So there's a couple more questions. How many ants do you estimate are in your collection?
We have over 11,000 records. That signify probably over 20,000 or more specimens of ants in liquid, plus 2,000 specimens pinned. Yeah, it's one of our strongest collection. For Misidae, is a very good collection. Not for the small specimens, but for the regular ants, we have a very good collection.
Can you talk a little bit more about your earthquake modifications?
Well, Bogota has been destroyed 4 times in its history. Because of this, we select the ground level, because it's the less susceptible for everything. We have some conditions in the construction to reduce problems with seismic or telluric movement that are very frequent here. There was a decision before even to start the construction of the building, just to save the specimen.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Giovanni. There are 2 more taxon-specific questions for you in the Q&A box if you'd like to answer them. But that concludes our first session for the Virtual Collections Tour Symposium. I'd like to thank all of the speakers and also all of the attendees who made this virtual session more engaging. Keep those chats coming, keep those questions and answers coming, and because it really does help in this virtual platform. We now have a 90-minute break scheduled, which will follow with the symposium, Entomological Collections During a Global Pandemic. And I'm sure we've all been impacted by COVID in very many different ways. So it will be great to come together and see how other collections handle it. So although Zoom webinar is not the best engaging setting for a virtual conference, we are hosting some meet and greet sessions, which are organized by different people and will be hosted on a regular Zoom platform. So we sent out the link to the meet and greet Google Drive spreadsheet that will have the links to the different sessions. And maybe we'll be able to share that in the chat box really quickly too. So if you'd like to participate in them, just sign up, we'll open that spreadsheet and join the link at the appropriate time. So thanks again once for attending this symposium, Collection Tours of the World. I'm sure that you enjoyed these tours as much as I did, and now feel a little bit more connected with not only the collections, but the faces behind these collections too. So enjoy your break. We look forward to seeing you back at 7:30 p.m. Universal Time. Make sure you check your time zone for the correct time. And remember that there are separate Zoom links for each of our different sessions. So thank you once again for everyone participating in the first session of ECN 2020's virtual meeting.
Thank you very much, everyone. That was an amazing session. And I just want to jump in and say thank you again to all of our sponsors, our personal donors and corporate and institutional donors. You've gone a long way in keeping us alive as an institution and as a network. And I want to ask you to stick around and look at the videos that BioEquip has made for us. We have a sponsor slideshow that will run up and through our break. And with that, Karen can hit play on that. Stick around for a bit and see everyone at 11:30. Thank you.
We're really going to miss seeing you this year in Orlando. But have you ever wondered where your cabinets, drawers, nets come from? Well, wonder no more, because this is BioEquip. I thought maybe you'd like to see what happens when you place an order, see how things are produced, and see how things are shipped. Come on and follow me in. So your order starts here with these wonderful folks. Whether you've ordered online, maybe over the phone, sent us a PO, these are the people you'll talk to. Hey, Selena, do you have anything for me to take to the back? Let's head on over to the tube.
Yes, hello.
Your order, along with some others, are now ready to go back to where the action happens. Meet the tube. Another order coming through, guys. So let's head down to the BioEquip production floor. This is where the magic happens. Quick shout out to the bug room. Oftentimes, before we send something to you, we have to make it. Cabinets, drawers, nets, cages. Welcome to the wood shop. Keep up the good work, Abel. Sometimes we have to do some electrical work too. Traps, black lights. If you've ordered any of those, chances are you've met my good friend Angel before.
Hi.
Once things are produced, they're ready to be shipped out. Let's go see how that happens. Speaking of shipping, your order's here. It's time to get some exercise and fill this order. 2 sprinting boards, check. Box of pins. Everybody needs pins. Time to build a net. Handle, ring, bag, check. Last but not least, 1 drawer, check. It's time to box things up. Elsie, I have another one for you.
Great.
Oh.
Okay, I take it.
Elsie, she's the one who gets it done. Order's boxed up and it's ready to go. All we need to do now is send it off by mail. Oh, hey, now it's time that we got your merchandise off to you. So put her on the truck, Steve. time to bid you farewell from the BioEquip showroom. It's busy in the back, but it's a little quiet up front. Feels a little like Orlando. But with any luck, we'll see you all again next year, 2021, in Denver.